All right. Well, hello there, everyone. How you doing today? It's Sunday, November the 26th. Man, time does fly by. The year is starting to wind down. Anyway, I'm Maskey Finance, still coming to you from south of the border, down here in the country of Panama. And my disclaimer real quick before we get started, because I do have a very special guest with me today, but I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. And if we talk anything health related, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist, nothing like that. And neither is my guest. So with that being said, I will introduce this young man to you. So anyway, how you doing today there, Justin?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. And well, welcome to the country of Panama, and welcome to my channel.
Panama's something else. I know you talk about it a lot on your channel, but I actually kind of fell in love with it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I think I've said it on my channel. When I was younger than you, I came here. I was stationed here in the Navy, and I arrived in Panama when I was 20, and I fell in love with the country back then. I've been back to visit numerous times over the years, and now I'm back again, just testing out living here. So with that being said, if you want to take us back in time a little bit to when you were a much younger Justin, and just tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Since we know you're on my channel because you're an investor, did you grow up like a lot of people may think, born with a silver spoon? Your parents were wealthy. They gave you a trust fund. You're a multimillionaire as a 12-year-old. Is that how it all started for you, Justin?
I wish it would have made stuff a whole lot easier. So how I grew up, me and my parents actually lived in a car at one point when I was a child. I remember my parents actually telling a story about how we didn't have anything to eat, and went to a county fair, and my grandma had gave them a few dollars, and so they used it and bet on this like spinning wheel, and ended up getting us food for the night. But they were so lucky that they got us food for a couple nights. So that story I'll always remember because it was just, even as a child, like a lot of people think that you don't remember a lot of that stuff, but even as a child, I remember how we used to go to the flea market and try to sell stuff all the time to basically like make money. And I guess kind of forwarding life growing up a little bit. My parents always kind of believed in, and I talk about this on my channel as well a little bit, how they always believe that you should go to college and get a college education, different stuff like that. And I think that, college education is pretty good, but I didn't realize until like after I got out of college that a lot of my friends, they struggled to get good jobs, even with a college degree and different things like that. So real estate kind of opened up a new perspective in my mind. So to kind of go back in time a little bit, after I graduated, my first job, I was only making it's like 35,800 bucks a year, I believe is the exact number it was. And um, like in my mind, I was going to make like 80, 90 or $100,000 as soon as I got out of college. And that was not how it was. So I wasn't a big fan of I didn't want to stay at the job that I was at forever. And I didn't see myself there. And so I was basically trying to figure out, at the time I got that job in 2018. In about 2019, the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020, I was trying to figure out a new avenue to go so that I could actually not have to work until I'm 60 years old. And so I started dabbling in the stock market. I made a little bit of money on the stock market, also lost, did some day trading. I thought I was, I guess, the bomb of the stock market up until I lost the money. And I ended up, when COVID hit, just deciding that stock market was probably not the best option for me, because I seen how fast the market dropped and how much money other people were losing. So I just started kind of looking for different avenues to make money and invest money, because I lived very very, very poor, with the same mentality like when I was a child. And so I saved up a lot of money. And so after I cashed out my stock and the money I had in the bank, that's actually when I purchased my first property, was April of 2021. And from there, I've grown to 18 units.
Yeah, let me ask you a question then. You said April of 2021 you purchased your first one, but what gave you the idea to get started in real estate? I know the stock market was during COVID, stock market kind of, I think it dropped because I was pulling all my money out of stocks prior to COVID. I think it was maybe 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. I was pulling all my money out. Maybe even before that, but I still followed it a little bit. But what really spurred the interest in real estate? Did you know someone locally? Did you see it on YouTube? Did you see a TV commercial? Just what do you think gave you that idea?
Actually, so I was so I guess trying to figure out how like rich people got rich, that I'd go to work, and just listen to YouTube videos constantly about how other people make money. So I came across some with real estate. I came across some with like ETF investing, some with CDs, which doesn't really make hardly any money at all. I came across, just one thing after another. And when I sat down and did the numbers for like all the different options that I came across, it seemed like real estate made the most sense, because you don't just gain money like, other avenues of investing. Like, of course, you can invest in a stock or a dividend or something, and or get a dividend out of it. I'm sorry, get a dividend out of a stock or something along those lines. But what got me so intrigued by real estate was the fact that you have write-offs such as like appreciation, the repairs, and then you also get appreciation while you're holding that property. And so it seemed a whole lot easier to make money off of that, even if you didn't know what you were doing. Just being honest, as long as you don't totally mess up everything, then if it seems like you can't go wrong. Like, of course, you still, you got to run your numbers. You got to, look into what you're doing. But as long as you have a good foundation of how to invest, it's so easy to invest that I felt like it's not like the stock market. Like, there's no way it could go wrong as bad.
Right. That's very true. Because I know I've shared on my channel, my adventure with my first house, how it stressed me out and how I evicted my first tenant and everything. But even while I was going through that, I kept thinking to myself, but I do have a house, and I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know how to run numbers, nothing like that. And I was still thinking, I still have another house besides the one I live in. And even if I have a bad tenant, if that person leaves and I get a new tenant in, as long as I can keep paying the mortgage, houses always go up in value over time. And I still have that house, and I bought it in January 2017. Now we're in November 2023. I bought it for $97,000. And if I look at Zillow now, Zillow shows it, and Realtor.com, Redfin, they show it valued at right around $200,000. And I'm like, now in hindsight, I'm like, even if I had breaking even with my tenant, never had a dime of profit, right now, I've still made over $100,000 just from holding that house.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I've been, like I mentioned, my first property, April 2021. I've got a total of $197,000 in between all the properties, and they're currently valued at 1.1 million if I were to sell today. So that's a pretty big, I mean, that's like 5 times my money of what I would have had, like just sitting in the bank.
Right. And you've done that. 2021 was just 2 short years ago. So
Yeah.
in 2 short years, you went from whatever your figure was, 190 some thousand, to now over $1 million. And to me, that's pretty amazing. And let me ask you this, with that very first house, how did you get that down? Did you get a conventional mortgage? And if so, how did you get that down payment? Was it stock money? Was it money you had in the bank? Or did money come from somewhere else?
So the first property, I actually I was working about 3 jobs in college, and I was on 2 sports teams. Um, so through my college years, I basically worked on paying off my student loans. And then right after I got out of college, I paid the remaining of the student loan off, and I just saved the money from working, two to 3 jobs, and ended up finally saving up the money for the down payment. And some of the money also came from the stock market, kind of like I mentioned. But also, for those that don't know, on your retirement, your first home purchase that you're going to live in yourself, you can actually take out a like and check into this, because I don't know if this is different from state to state or anything like that, but you can actually take out money from your retirement and the money that you invest to actually put down on the first home that you purchase, like that you're going to live in. So basically just working in and stock market is basically where I came up with the money for the first property. And after that, it was just like pretty much snowball. Like none of my money in the properties, except the very first 2, and then the rest was just equity off the other ones.
Right. All right. All right. That sounds pretty good. And one thing, like you mentioned, a retirement account. Um, the missus and I, my wife, she had a job with the 401k. I never had a 401k. I was in a government job. I had a 457 plan. But with her 401k, we use that to take out what's called a loan. And so it all depends on who the custodian is. I think her custodian at the time was Vanguard. And we still have that 401k now. It's Fidelity, but you can do the same thing with Fidelity. You can take a loan out, and when we did it, the value of your account had to be more than double the amount you're taking out.
Correct. Yeah.
But they would give a maximum loan at that time of $50,000, which means you'd have to have a value of $100,000. So we used that 401k loan to buy a house at a really great price and do what's called the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, refinance, repeat, or however it goes. And we paid to buy the house, we paid for our rehab, and we did it all for under $50,000. And then we did a cashback refinance, pulled enough money out to completely pay our loan back. And so it's what I call it our free house, because there was no money out of our pocket per se. But someone, if they have a 401k, like you said, they can use it to help purchase their own house they live in, or say their balance is high enough and they don't have any money in the bank, maybe they can just borrow whatever they need for that down payment. Just an idea. So anyway, you got that first one. That first one, I think I'm saying it's a house, but was it actually a single family home, or was it something bigger?
So the first one was actually a fourplex. It was a 3-bed, 1.5 bath, has a fenced in backyard and a storage unit on the back of it. And I mean, I've looked a lot on the market. Before I actually pulled the trigger on my first property, I looked at probably, I don't know, 20-ish homes, properties, single family, multifamily. Personally, I like the multifamily better. I just like the fact that as a beginner, if you get a multifamily and 2 of the units are rented, your mortgage is paid for. But if you get a single family and it's not rented, you're had to pay out money. So I took that precaution for my first rental just because I didn't want to take the chance of getting into something that I couldn't pay for. And so I bought a multifamily in the beginning.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Because when I started, I bought a single family home, but my third purchase was a triplex. And that's what I discovered when I bought that triplex. I closed on the 31st of the month. So the first of the month, the very next day, I got 3 rent checks in, which was pretty amazing. But from my perspective, I was self-managing at the time. And as time went on, I learned I personally preferred single family homes because I found I had less drama. I didn't make as much money as like 3 checks at once, but yet I would get a tenant in, and I have tenants that first house I bought, when I got my current tenant in there, she's been in there like 3 or 4 years, and she plans to stay there another 3 or 4 years until she retires. Where if I get a multifamily home, it seems like the turnover typically is much quicker.
Mhm.
But I know every market's different. And with that being said, I don't think you've shared it yet. If you don't mind, what market are you investing in, or what state are you investing in?
So I personally like Hardin County, Kentucky. That's mainly because I live in that area. Um, it's just the prices are a little bit lower compared to some of the other places that I've seen. And not only that, but since it's kind of close to where I live, I can do a lot of the maintenance. My father knows how to do a lot of the maintenance, and so it's really good to me that I can learn from him. I mean, like while he's still kind of alive and stuff like that, and it teaches me how to know when somebody's doing a good job on fixing your property versus a bad job on fixing your property. And I know that's a bad way to say it, but it's good to know that they know what they're doing, because then you know who you can hire, who's good contractors, who's bad contractors. You can kind of start building relationships on who you can trust. Like for you, you're a perfect example. If you move to a total different country, then now you know who you can depend on. And so I really like to do most of my maintenance, and then just hire out some of it as I go along. It saves me money, plus it also helps me understand what's going on.
Right, right. That makes sense. And since you brought up like moving to another country, I made the move to a foreign country, and I'm renting a single family home. And the cool thing is, when I first came to this area, I don't know a lot of people, but I'm meeting more and more almost every day. But my house I'm living in has needed some minor work being done to it. So I'm meeting contractors that the landlord is paying for, and I get to watch how they work because I do have that knowledge. I don't have the skill to do the work, but I have the knowledge of seeing a job done correctly or a job done incorrectly. So I've met several contractors here that if I ever purchase a rental property in this area, I now have contractors on my list that I can call, which makes it pretty nice. All right, so you got that first fourplex. You're getting those rent checks in. You learned how to do some work on it. Your dad did some work on it. But how did that lead to you getting more units then?
So the first fourplex was actually probably my best investment I've had so far. Um, and just to kind of like iterate on it a little bit, um, the property originally they were asking, I think it was 395, and I bid at 300, and eventually got them talked down to 335. The rents were a total of, I think now they're a total of 4,000. They could be a total of 4,800. They're currently at 4,050. So like really a lot of rent coming in for that building. But when I seen the amount of profit that you can make on a property, that kind of got me excited about purchasing more. And in February of 2022, I found another property. I had saved up cash as well by working a lot, and This property, I had a little bit of different situation of what happened in the loan process. I saved up, it was 20% down. Just, and I was planning on basically only putting the 20% down. Well, I found out that if you put a property, you put 25% down at some banks, that you can get a fixed rate. So whenever I got into the loan process, my understanding, I was going to put 20% down, and at the very end, they told me I had to put 25. So I was in a situation where either I had to come up with extra 5% or I couldn't close. And I kind of reached out to one of my friends and I said, hey, is there any way I could, so I guess private money, is there any way that I could potentially borrow 5% of the money and pay you back over time? And so I basically borrowed the money, and I used my money I had in the bank and the borrowed money from private money, and I bought my duplex. From that point, it was a whole lot easier. Like, I think the magic number for rental properties is probably, I'd say around 8, because 6 to 8, I would say. Because what I did from that point is I took and borrowed, or I got an appraisal done on the fourplex, and they appraised it. I bought it at 335, and they appraised it at 422. And so I used a business line of credit. I cashed out some of the money, purchased another fourplex in August of 2022. While in between February and August, I was saving money again to purchase another one. And so the extra cash that I had from the business line of credit, I purchased my second fourplex, or I mean my third fourplex, in September of 2022. And then basically it was the same process. I had an appraisal done on the duplex. I used that money to purchase my most recent fourplex, which was in August of 2023. And I'm currently looking at purchasing possibly 2 more fourplexes by basically taking the equity out of the other fourplexes into this one. I just had a recent appraisal done on the other fourplexes, and they said that altogether I have about $178,000 in equity in those 3, 4, not the first one, but the other 3 that I purchased. And then I have another $24,000 equity or so in the duplex left. So basically a little over 200,000 is what I got. So looking at buying 2 more fourplexes and basically expanding like that. But I think once you have a few good deals, it's so easy to expand because you can just use the equity in the other ones to purchase more. And then just make sure that your rents cover the payments, along with saving your money as you go in your personal. If you can do it that way, you can expand super fast and just keep going like I did.
Right. I agree. Because that's something I've done. As you know, I didn't make a lot of money working. I was a police officer, and I've said in my chat, I topped out making $52,000 a year. But my very first house, I used a HELOC, my down payment. That's a home equity line of credit on my personal home. So my personal home was paid off. So I used that HELOC to get my first one. I used a HELOC again to help me get my second one. I had retired by that time. I used my 457 plan, which was, I had a government job, so I had a 457 plan. I cashed that out once I retired, used all the money I got back after paying my taxes to buy my triplex. And then I just kept going from there. And I ended up selling a house, making a profit, buying 4 more. I did cashback refinances, bought on 2 properties and bought 9 more houses. And it just started snowballing for me, just like it's snowballing for you. So you mentioned you have currently 18 units. You mentioned you're looking at to buy two more buildings, right? Two more fourplexes. And if that's correct, that would give you 26 units. So if everything works out and you get those other two fourplexes and you're at 26 units, you're doing pretty good. But where do you think you go from there? Are you going to sit back a while? Or are you going to take a little break from life and take an extended vacation in Panama? Or are you going to work even harder to get more money to buy more? Or what do you think you'll do?
Um, I think, that's a hard question, but since I started this, my goal has been 80 units in 10 years. So I was planning to, no matter what, I was going to retire in 10 years, as long as all the numbers worked out, all that stuff. But so I'm kind of above average a little bit right now of what I was wanting to do. But I think, 80 units at 10 years, it's so far it's been a pretty, like, the goal's been really good. And I think that would give me more than enough money that I could ever spend in a month as far as the rent coming in, and also still be able to live how I want. I'd like to be able to, travel a little bit the world. I've never been to another country. This is the first time, besides a cruise. I don't really count a cruise because you get off the ship and you get back on less than like 4 or 5 hours later or whatever it is, versus, actually being in the country and you experience a little bit more. But I'd like to travel a little bit more and eventually like to open a nonprofit back up that I used to run. But I didn't really make, I didn't believe in taking any money out of the nonprofit back in the day. And so it was kind of hard for me to manage a nonprofit, work 2 to 3 jobs and all that stuff while starting to invest in real estate. And so I figured for now, I put the nonprofit on the back burner a little bit, and maybe further on down the road, open the nonprofit back up. It basically gave Christmas presents and food to low income families. And so I definitely would like to do that eventually again, after building up my rental portfolio.
All right, that sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, because that reminds me, I don't think I've ever said on my channel, I used to have a nonprofit as well. When I was a police officer, I have mentioned I was behind literacy programs where I read to children, I went into prisons, I went into jails, and I talked to inmates. But I also started an event where I invited authors to attend. And I met probably 1,000 authors over 8 or 9 year period. But I had started a 501c3, a nonprofit, for that event, keep it a little bit separate from the police department where I was working, but I was still allowed to work on it during my job as being a cop. I could be on the computer inviting authors and that sort of thing. So it was fun, and it's something I've thought about doing again, but just going in a different avenue. But as you know, I'm now living in Panama. You're in Panama right now. And I think I've told you my plan, but I'll say it again just in case I didn't, or if my viewers don't know it, because it may spur some ideas. I'm testing out living in a foreign country, maybe for 1 year, maybe for 2 years, maybe forever. But I may end up going back to the US, and what I may do is bounce around and just stay in Airbnbs or VRBOs and live where I know people. Maybe I go to where I grew up in Maryland. Maybe I go to Kentucky and stay for a couple weeks and hang out with you. Maybe I go out to the West Coast. Maybe I go to the Montana. Maybe I go to New Zealand. Maybe I go to Spain. I don't know yet. But with that being said, if I keep buying investments along the way, I do have connections here in Panama. I would like to buy something here in Panama, possibly a vacation home. I already have a vacation home in Florida. I may try to buy a vacation home somewhere else in the US. I may try to buy a vacation home in Europe, possibly. And what I could do then is figure out where I want to live at more permanently. But if I have several vacation homes in different places, I can block off a couple weeks and go live there. Maybe I can go live out in Montana in a vacation home. Maybe I can live in Spain in a vacation home, live here in Panama, live in Florida, and just kind of bounce around while I still can. But as I get older, eventually I will settle down somewhere, but we shall see.
Yeah, that would be great. It's always nice to kind of see the world a little bit. I feel like too much or too many people sit in kind of one area and don't get to experience different stuff. I feel like Panama, for instance, it's much different, even though it's an Americanized country. I would say it's Americanized country. But I mean, some of the, I mean, not just food, but like the culture, the kind of laws here, because I've noticed that there's some laws that are different. It's as much different than kind of how it is for us, and so being able to take time to experience some of that is really cool to be able to, you know, just travel and see different things. As a kid, we didn't really travel too much because we never really had the money to. My parents were poor, like kind of like I mentioned, and so we really, I think Tennessee was the most we ever traveled to, and it's right next to Kentucky. So we had family down there, so we just usually went from Kentucky to family's house in Tennessee. But I remember asking my parents, like, well, how much, you know, what all have you, like, how many states have you been to? And they didn't really, they didn't really go to many states. So that's kind of been an experience when I have the extra money or whatnot. I help them like be able to go on vacations to a few other states, and they seem like they really like it. So that's kind of been our family thing, is like we try to go on vacations to a couple states a year or something. But still gotta, you know, save money back, and so I can buy the next property so I can do more and be able to retire quicker. So it's definitely I guess a lifestyle change versus um, when you don't have any money at all growing up to when you have a little bit more. And so you just got to keep being modest, I guess, and not spending a lot of money and kind of staying reserved, and because it could come just as well as it goes. So you got to be able to build your real estate up so that you can't spend the amount that you make coming in, or you just don't, either or.
Right. That's very true. That's very true. And one thing with traveling, you get exposed to different things besides what you had just mentioned. Like when I got stationed here in Panama back in the late 80s, and I was a young guy then. I was younger than you are now. And after, I think it was the very first year I was here at Christmas time, I ended up taking a trip to Peru in South America. And I flew down with a buddy. We went to Lima, Cusco, and Machu Picchu, and then made the reverse trip. But we spent a week there. And a few things I noticed was Peru at that time, I think it was 1988. They had runaway inflation. Inflation was like hundreds of percent a year. They were clamoring after the American dollar. Like literally, if you had American dollars, people would be begging you to buy whatever trinket they were selling because they wanted that American dollar, because the American dollar could go far in that country because their currency, whatever was happening with the inflation, it couldn't buy anything. But one thing that stuck in my mind, I can still see it in my mind. I was sitting on a train during one of my travels there, and I looked out the window, and a little girl was there. and she was probably 4 or 5 years old. She's dirty. And I look at her, she's walking around with her hand out, she's begging, but on her back, she's carrying a little baby. And I remember seeing that and I was like, it really struck me because I'm like, she's poor. She's poor living in a country where she has probably no hope. But then I think back to the United States. When I grew up in the United States, I was exposed to poor people. But in the US, even poor people, they aren't poor by and large. I mean, when you grew up, you had hard times, but yet you're in the United States of America. You know, it's different than someone who's living in poverty in Peru or poverty in Africa or wherever it may be. But anyway, with that being said, by getting out, it allows us to see other cultures, to see other things. And I think it'll help us better appreciate. I know with me, when I started getting real estate, my goal is to try to help other people out as much as I can because I know where I came from. I know what real estate has done for me. And if I can just help one other person to get started, it can change a person's life. You know, it's changed your life. It's changed my life. Everyone, you know, Millennial Mike, it changed his life. There's other folks that have been on my channel. I have a playlist interview with others. I have a young man named Cowboy. He's a police officer up in New York City. When he was 12 years old, his mom was murdered and his dad was an alcoholic. But as he grew up, he realized he had to get out of his home life. And I think he joined the Marines, but then he came back and he started buying real estate. And it's like with us, you buy one, you buy two, and it changes your life. So, but anyway, with that being said, let's say you've been in Panama now just a couple of days. You've basically only been in Panama City, which is a big city. But from what you've seen, what's your impressions of the country? You know, both good or bad. You know.
Um, so I think like kind of going off what you said just now, I think people kind of don't realize like how much opportunity they have in the U.S. By what I understand from kind of speaking to some of the locals and different things like that is, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're more of a local now than I am, but speaking as some of the others, they said that it's hard to get loans for like houses and different things like that. Generally, you have to pay with cash. So I think in the real estate model, what a lot of real estate investors do is almost everyone I've ever talked to, you take out a loan to basically purchase property, or you pay cash and then you take out a loan to have the property. There's a few I know that kind of pay cash for stuff. They build a little bit slower. But in general, the real estate, you build a whole lot quicker as far as financially. Like you make a lot more money generally by using a loan. So I think people in the US don't realize there's a lot more opportunity to make money because the banks are willing to bet on you. You just have to take action and do it. So I noticed that's one thing that I've seen in this country is it seems like the locals have like a harder time like being able to live, like buy houses, etc. And I noticed that if you like in Panama City, there's like local stores and then there's Americanized stores. And the Americanized stores, you seem like you pay, or like even food places, you seem like you pay American prices. If you go to more of the kind of local places, you seem like you pay a lot less. Like for instance, Starbucks coffee. I'll just use this example. I really like the mocha frappe, and I think in the US I pay like $8.95. Here, I went to Albrook Mall and I bought a local coffee, and I only paid I think it was $4.95 for the same amount of coffee. So it's kind of neat to be able to experience like some of the different differences. And although I haven't got to experience too much because I've been kind of just in the city part of things, but it's really nice to be able to be here and to see different things as well. So I guess kind of going off what you said, Americans have it so much easier than different countries, and they have more opportunity to do stuff. It's just a matter if they're going to take action or not.
That's very true. Because I think in the United States, we can get 30-year fixed rate mortgages.
Yeah.
Here in Panama, it's hard to get for a local person to get a mortgage. If they have a good job, they can get a mortgage, but it's not a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. It's something they have to put a larger down payment down instead of 20. Like if it's their own personal home in the US, maybe it's 5%. From what I've been told here, it might be 40% down payments. It's a large down payment. And the mortgage, instead of being a 30-year term, might be like a 10-year term or a 15-year term, which means your mortgage payment is a lot higher. So it's harder for someone in this country to buy a house. And I think that's true in a lot of countries around the world. I think the US is almost the only country using the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Most other countries, maybe they're not like Panama, but they do something similar, a higher down payment, shorter term, 15 years, 20 years. And, but it's just in the US, I think I've made a comment on my channel, and I'll use the term any working American. If someone's working a job, any working American who wants to, they got to have that desire, can get started investing in real estate. Like if there's a will, you can always figure out a way. And I think I show evidence of that. I think you show evidence of that. You had that desire, you had that motivation. Same for almost every real estate investor out there. Every investor, there's a few that had the silver spoon they were born with, but by and large, most real estate investors were just normal Janes and Joes who worked a job and started buying one rental, two rentals, and they just kept building from there.
So, and I think something else to mention is I don't know how it was for you personally, but starting out with just one or two rentals, etc. Like for me, I said I put 197,000 into it and made currently, and I just got recent appraisals on almost everything. So currently it's valued at 1.1 million if I sold everything. You can't make that in 2 years. I mean, you can't really 5 times your money like that in 2 years. And so like, if I did that for, let's say I'm on track for 10 years and I'm going to retire because it's my goal. If I 5 times the money every 2 years until 10 years, that's an incredible amount of money. So 2 years from now, be what, $5 million, 2 more years, 10 million. I mean, it can add up really quickly. And with the opportunity that we have in the US, I just think it's crazy not to take some type of action to be able to do something similar to real estate.
Right. I agree. And the beauty of real estate, you've touched on it a bit there, is you get what's called positive cash flow with rental property. It's different than stocks. With stocks, say you work a job, you have $1 million in the stock market. You have to sell stocks to get money out or get a lot of dividend checks. With real estate, you keep your investment and the income just keeps coming in. And over time, rents will increase. Your mortgage more or less stays the same. Tax and insurance may go up, but the principal and interest will stay the same. And it's just the easiest way, in my humble opinion, is to build wealth, is buying real estate. But once someone gets a fair amount of rentals. It also opens up options. There's other avenues they can go. Chad Carson, who was just on my channel, talked about being a small and mighty investor. Like, you don't have to get 200 units or 100 units, or maybe not even get 80 units. You know, we're all different. But along the way, do what you're doing. Take a little trip to go somewhere else to experience a different life in some way. Even if you want to stay in the US. If you're in Kentucky, go visit Texas, or go visit Maine, or visit California, or come visit Panama, or go to Puerto Rico, or go to Guam. You know, there's a lot out there to see and to do. But by buying real estate, if someone gets 10 units, they get 18 units, they get 25 units, it just provides more opportunity to do what any person wants to do, basically, because we all have different interests, you know, so we all figure out we're on a different journey. So we just figure out what we like and where we want to go. So
Yeah, and if nothing else, like even if you're not interested in visiting other countries, like it gives you time to be able to spend with family, or if family needs like help, you can help them out instead of just bare minimum, you know, living. I have a friend, for instance, I went to high school with, and she just recently reached out and she was like, wow, like, you know, me and my husband make so much money, but it seems like it doesn't go hardly anywheres. Which they make more, I guess, than the medium average for Kentucky, but for them it feels like a lot because they also grew up poor. And I kept trying to convince them, you know, you should buy a fourplex, because they were thinking about buying their first home. And I didn't end up convincing them, but I think like the fourplex or duplex is the way to go when you're buying a property, at least starting out, because like in my case, I'm currently living in one of my fourplexes. So it allows the opportunity, the profits of the other units to pay for where I live. So really only need 2 to pay the mortgage. So 3 basically pays for everything, electric and water, etc. So for those that haven't, I truly believe it's a really good opportunity.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes complete sense to me. So, all right, Justin. Well, I guess we can start wrapping this up. If you want, once I stop recording, to stay connected and we'll chat a little bit longer. All right. But if you want to, I don't know, is there anything else you're thinking of that you want to share with our viewers? Any last words you want to say?
I would just say basically, you know, take the opportunity. Maybe if you find kind of like what we talked about today interesting, or to you, then maybe kind of look up and do your own research, because I think it's life changing. I believe that there is like tons of opportunity, and it kind of gives you more of the financial freedom to be able to kind of do what you want and be able to help out family if you want to, and travel the world a little bit as well. So I would say definitely real estate is the way to go, and you'll never make what you will work in a 9-to-5 job versus what you will in real estate. So I would say definitely check that out.
All righty. That sounds good to me. All right, Justin, it's been great talking to you. We'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe after you get your next 2 fourplexes, you know, and we'll join back up and you can tell us your experience about those last 8 units that you bought.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Justin. And thanks so much, everyone, for watching and tuning in. And I will put a link below to Justin's YouTube channel. He did recently just start a YouTube channel. So you can find that below. So for Justin, who's currently in Panama City, and for myself, who's up in the interior of Panama, everyone have a great day. And Maskey and Justin will be signing out.